Yellow. So, hmm. As you might have heard, the new Tropes versus Women video by Anita Sarkeesian is out. Joyous day. And I've been kind of having, after watching it, I kind of have a lot of thoughts swimming around in my head about it. I've been, venting generally about it on Twitter and Tumblr, I guess. Great platforms to talk about Anita Sarkeesian in the negative light, by the way. This is going to be a very critical video, so if you drink the Sarkeesian Kool-Aid, you're probably going to want to click off now and pretend you knew everything that you think I'm going to talk about here, about how I'm a misogynist and stuff, without actually watching. Whatever. But, I've never really liked Anita Sarkeesian, from the beginning, because talk shit about Powerpuff Girls, and that kind of gets you automatically on my shit list. But her rhetoric has never been something that I've agreed with. But this one in particular got to me a lot more than she usually does. And I'm actually not as alone on that one as anti-Anita Sarkeesian people usually are. Usually, we're the minority. But now there's a lot more people in our camp going, bitch, what the fuck? And you might have heard, because it has been kind of getting a lot of traction in the last couple days since it's been out, but this is the one where she comes out as a swerf. Swerf is a sex work exclusionary radical feminist. It's a radical feminist who says basically fuck prostitutes for whatever reason. And Anita Sarkeesian made her reasons for saying fuck prostitutes explicitly clear in this episode. And this isn't scripted. I was just talking to myself about it, and I figured why not film it. So there's probably going to be a lot of pausing and trying to gather my thoughts, and probably a lot of jumping around, switching tracks on this train of thought, But I'll try to stick to the main things that bugged me about this. Because, there's nothing worse than someone who's claiming to want to make things better, who is making things demonstrably worse in the process. That's what it feels like to me, is what's happening here. She comes out in this episode being hey, objectification is bad, treating women like sex objects is bad, while objectifying and treating women like sex objects. And the term that's got everyone rightly upset with her about this is prostituted women. She refers to hookers, prostitutes, sex workers, whatever your preferred term is, as prostituted women. And that phrase reminded me a lot of the term colored people. And I know I'm kind of opening a bag of worms there by comparing it to the, race equality movement. But that, the term colored people is bad because it's implying that this person is less than human because of the color of their skin. They're saying, oh, they're not a person. They're a person, with a little minus at the end because they're colored. That is the implication of the language used when you call someone a colored person. So that's really what prostituted women makes me think of. She's saying these aren't real women. They are women negative. They are less than women because they have been prostituted. And it it does a couple things. It implies, again, that, like, women who engage in this career are less than non-prostituted women, and it's denying their agency. It is implying that these women are not doing this of their own free will. They're being forced into it. And she does literally say that in the video. She literally says, the term was self-oppressing. And that was like, what? Self-oppressing. She literally, in her own words, says that women who dress sexy, who are pole dancers, who are prostitutes, have been brainwashed. She literally says women who choose to express their sexuality in a way that she does not approve of have been brainwashed by society. Because obviously no woman would ever want to do these things, so they've been tainted. They've been tainted by the penis. The patriarchy penis has penetrated their brains and made them want to show off their boobs. It's weird. Like, I always, like, before the internet kind of exploded into the social justice brigade thing, before game media degenerated to the level that it's at now, where it's just slut-shaming is criticism of a game now. That's a topic for another time, but the idea of criticizing a female character because they are sexualized or dressed in sexual clothing, period, has always bugged me. Because it's bad when it's the only option, when it's the only choice, when it's the only avenue for representation of women possible. But when there's other samples, then what's the big deal? Some women do like expressing themselves in that way. Some women do find empowerment in that. So what's the issue? You cannot say she dresses skimpy, therefore is a bad character, period. You need to explain why, in this particular context and usage, it's negative in some way. But before game criticism has just became what it is now, I always got the impression that feminism was a liberal movement, you know? I always kind of got the feeling it was about, literally, liberation. Liberating women from the boxes that they've been put in by society with the expectations in, like, you've got a vagina, that means you're going to be this in life. And feminism was like, no, I'ma do what I want. And that's not what it is anymore. At least that's not what Anita Sarkeesian seems to think it is. Like, she comes off as incredibly conservative. And inherently, that's not a bad thing, but conservative feminism is like an oxymoron, at least to me. Because, like, feminism is supposed to be about liberation, of freedom, of women are people too, and they can express themselves in all of the ways and more. You are limited only by what is physically possible and what is, like, decently safe. Like, safe, sane, and consensual people. But do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone. And she is wielding feminism as a weapon to say, any woman who does not conform to what I say they should be is doing it wrong. The term internalized misogyny, which she doesn't use specifically, but the mentality behind that idea she employs often. She says, like, any woman who does insert thing I personally don't approve of here is just is not doing it of their own free will, basically. That's the idea behind internalized misogyny. Because, God forbid, women are, snowflakes who can do anything they want regardless of whether or not it's what any other woman would want. Because we're all individuals and can do whatever we want. No. You've got tits and a vagina and identify as a woman. You can't do this stuff. Otherwise, you're not doing it because you wanted to. You're doing it because men made you do it with the media and sense the objectification. And it just bothers me, especially because the topics she brings up are important issues. The issues that women, that anyone, but we want to pretend sexism against men doesn't exist, so I'll play your game here. That women in the sex industry do face dangers, do face adversity. Like, pole dancers or strippers who are forced to do sexual favors for the person who owns the strip club with their jobs being held hostage. Prostitutes who cannot go to the cops for help. And their pimps and johns know this and potentially exploit it. And there's no safe avenue for them. She brings up, like, violence against sex workers in the video in a really cheap, selfish, unsubstantiated way, but she doesn't even acknowledge that those dangers would be minimized to the same degree that any other industry is if it was legal. If prostitution was legal, the dangers that prostitutes face would evaporate by and large. I mean, nothing you do in life is ever gonna be safe, otherwise it wouldn't be fun. But the dangers of STDs, the dangers of being raped, the dangers of being violently assaulted or murdered, or the dangers of being taken advantage of having your income taken through any number of means, all of those things would be minimized to the degree of non-existence if prostitution was legalized. And yet, she is presenting this issue as if the existence of prostitution, the existence of sex workers, in and of itself is a problem. Not the fact that it's criminalized, the fact that it exists, period. And you can't ever get rid of prostitution. Like, there's always gonna be people who want sex and have money, and there's always gonna be people who are willing to take that money to have that sex. It's called the oldest profession for a reason. People have always needed it, and people are always going to need it. I know there's kind of a lot of intersectionality here with this whole issue, because she demonizes male sexuality. She erases, or at best ignores, she makes a point to go out of her way to say lesbians and bisexuals exist, but they don't count. She stops and says, yes, some women might be attracted to this, but fuck them. They don't count. Like, the slut-shaming, the sex negativity, That's nothing new with Anita. I mean, she re-uploaded her Bayonetta video, in which she literally celebrates and advocates for segregation. I'm not joking. You can watch her Bayonetta video. Type in Anita, Feminist Frequency Bayonetta. She literally says, some countries have female-only subway cars. I wonder why we don't have them in America. That is like saying we should bring back whites and coloreds only bathrooms because sometimes black people get beaten up in a bathroom. Like, the solution to life being dangerous is not take away freedom. That is ridiculous. But, like I said, the general sex negativity on display in this video is nothing new. The unique issues she seems to raise against sex workers is. So that's what I'm thinking of. Because I've talked about how Anita is a judgmental, misogynistic prude in the past. And I mean misogynistic as in, she hates women. She really seems to hate women. It's weird. It's weird how nowadays feminists are the ones who are way, way more hateful towards women than any man. I'm generalizing, but I explained at the beginning how it's weird to me feminism has become conservative when it was founded as a liberation, liberal movement. But what bothers me is, this is a topic worth discussing. The shitty deal that sex workers have to put up with is a topic worth discussing, and yet she is discussing it in the worst possible way. There are so many, like, just off the top of my head, I'm reminded of that Velociraptor meme, the image where the Velociraptor's going like, ooh, and it asks a question, and like, one of those I saw was like, if a prostitute is raped, is it rape or just shoplifting? That is a real idea that people have in their brains, and apparently they don't think about it for more than 3 seconds, so they say, oh, well, that sounds legit to me. She raises the issue of people believing in rape myths because we're brainwashed by the media. She raises the issues of sex workers and the dangers they face, but she doesn't bring up how they're related. She doesn't bring up the fact that because of the criminalization of prostitution, it is seen in this way that makes people think that way, that it's okay to rape someone because they were selling their pussy. Like, prostitution is consensual sex between two consensual, hopefully sober adults for money. That is the only difference. That is the only difference between prostitution and just come at me, bro, with your legs splayed open in the alley, I guess. Like, George Carlin really said it best. Why is it illegal to sell what's perfectly legal to give away for free? No one has ever come up with an adequate argument to refute that. And she still doesn't. She still doesn't. In fact, she seems to be advocating even more towards women shouldn't want to have sex with straight men, apparently. She has such a narrow definition of what sex is or should be allowed to be. And as a hedonist, as someone who's like every color of the kink rainbow over here, what? it bothers me more than the other stuff, I guess. Because she raises points in this video more than the others so far. That if it was anyone else, if it was an actual academic, if it was someone who actually had two brain cells to rub together without something getting in between them to send sparks in the wrong direction, this would be a topic to discuss. This would be a topic to discuss of how prostitutes are represented in fiction, especially in interactive fiction, where players do have the freedom to murder prostitutes, which is a very real threat that prostitutes have to live with. And it's sad that they do, because, like, why? Why should... Just this weird taboo we have against sexuality in this culture, I guess. That, like, we'd rather people die and go, well, you shouldn't have been doing it, than say, hey, you can do whatever you want, we're gonna try and make it as safe as reasonably possible, considering the resources. And, like, when Jack Thompson said it, I said fuck you, so when she's saying it, I say fuck you. The media doesn't brainwash people. It doesn't alter behavior. It doesn't alter mental connections between things. I mean, yeah, if you're exposed to a lot of sexual images, you're going to become desensitized to it. Just like if you're exposed to a lot of violent images, you're going to become desensitized to violence. But the fact that the gaming media here pegged Jack Thompson as its unanimous enemy because of this idea that playing games makes you violent, and now is sucking Anita's dick because she is saying the exact same thing but replacing violence with rape, is despicable to me. But I will concede that representations of certain denominations of people does affect understanding. If all you are exposed to is stereotype, and you don't have that real world interaction with that denomination of people to inform you that, no, it's a stereotype, then yeah, some people are going to think that stereotype is the truth. It's an easy thing to fix. I mean, like, there's nothing easier to fix than stereotype. There's nothing easier to fix than the stereotype of, like, black people liking fried chicken than a black guy going, I'm not really a fan of fried chicken. Instantly, that'll break the mental image people have. Like, right away. Because, oh, I thought all black people like fried chicken. This guy's black, he doesn't like it. I guess that was a false thing to assume. But, like, it makes me think of Orange is the New Black, because I'm starting the new season now. And it reminds me of an interview from the actress who plays the trans character, the hairdresser, in the show. I hate myself for not remembering her name. So I finished episode 1, so she's at Chicago, so like those characters haven't been around yet, so I haven't gotten to remind myself. But she did an interview where like she gets letters from trans kids at schools who, like, before the show, like, whenever kids would go, like, what the fuck's a transgender? You're weird. Now, thanks to that show, thanks to her character, thanks to that representation, whenever these kids go, oh, I'm transgender, sexual, whatever, people go, oh, like that character from Orange is the New Black. Okay, done. Discussion over. Because people understand. That is the strength and beauty of representations in fiction. It facilitates understanding. It doesn't corrupt. It informs, if you allow it. So, the issue of the way prostitutes have been represented is something you can raise. But at the same time, it's kind of inherently an issue that's never going to be able to be solved outside of, like, narrative, I guess. I'm reminded of Watch Dogs, which had a whole aspect of the plot based around the human trafficking industry, which isn't the same thing as prostitution, but there was a cutscene where, like, I think it was Poppy? Yeah, like, Aiden was like, hey Poppy, it's cool, you're people too. Like, outside of narrative like that, it's kind of impossible to restrict the violence that players can inflict on sex workers, because players will inflict violence on everyone. Players will kill everyone in the game if they feel like it. Prostitute, soccer mom. I mean, the first thing people mod into games is the ability to kill the child characters, for Christ's sake. Like, this isn't a unique issue to prostitution. But, like, the issue of representation is there. If the only exposure people have to prostitutes is, oh, they fuck me and then I can kill them and get my money back, is gonna make people go, they're selling sex and I can just take it. And that's not true, because you can use this to facilitate understanding. You can use this to not condescendingly or exposition-wise explain the intricacies of the sex worker industry. You can go, hey, strippers are not like the baby form of prostitutes. Just because someone's a stripper doesn't mean they're going to sell sex too. It doesn't mean they're going to eventually become a prostitute. Some women just like dancing on the pole and showing off their bodies, and that's fine. Some people like the intimacy and companionship and sexual gratification of their career path, and they like it and paid. And that's fine. Like, that's the bottom line when it comes to this kind of positive representation, and it's fine part. And prostitutes haven't really had and it's fine yet. Like, killing hookers in games, well, you can kill everyone in games. But hookers haven't really had that, and it's fine yet. And that's a deficiency that I feel like could be criticized. That is something that I feel like games could do. I mean, there have been other stories in other media that have tackled this topic, like members of the geisha, even though geisha never had sex. So, I mean, like, the character of hooker with a heart of gold exists, but there aren't a lot of prostitutes in video games who are presented positively as human beings. And that is something you can criticize. Criticizing prostitutes existing and women selling the sexual companionship that there is a demand for in our culture, because obviously, I mean, human beings want to fuck. I don't know if you've noticed. That is not the correct way to do things. That is not the thing that needs complaining about. And that's my issue with Anita Sarkeesian as a whole. This is an important topic. Sexism on both sides is an issue, not only in video games, but culture in general. There is still unfair, unrealistic expectations placed on human beings based on their genitalia. Whatever that genitalia may be. And that issue is in video games just as much as everywhere else in society. But the way she's talking about it, the things she's talking about, is not helping the discussion. It is not contributing anything of merit or value, and it is actively regressive. She loves that word. She doesn't know what it fucking means, and that gets on my tits. She says regressive. She does not know what it means. Here's a hint, Anita. Boys wearing pink and girls wearing blue, that is literally regressive. Because blue used to be the color for girls and pink used to be the color for boys. We changed it, now it's the other way around, so switching it back, literally regressive. An old Japanese guy explaining how he wanted to appeal to a different demographic when he was designing his game, not regressive. I'm getting distracted and going back to old videos. But I could talk about the ludonarrative dissonance of the way she talked about how women were used in advertising for video games in the 80s. Because there's no issue with how women are advertised about video games today, right? Yeah, let's stick to 80s examples. It's not like the industry has changed since then or anyway. Fuck, I mean, like, those ads that she showed as examples of something that's bad, those looked really cool. Those look like the kind of ads we need today. Because at least it's going, hey, ladies, you want to play games? Here's some games. You can play them. Guys, you can play these games with ladies. They want to play them too. Whereas today, women are non-existent or marginalized in terms of video game advertisement. I'm reminded of that. I think it was a Call of Duty or Battlefield. The same fucking thing. Commercial where it's like a group of guys who are playing the game, like they're in the game and they're playing it, you know? And they're like poo-poo and stuff. And then like a drone was gonna kill this dude, but then boom, some Megan Fox chick shot it, and she was like, my boobies. Like, yeah, the one shit. Okay, like, argue about how accurate that might be to how many women versus men are playing these games, but I just found that to be really, like, really, okay. Like, I mean, like, compare that commercial that I'm talking about to the ads she's showing off in this video. And it's like, I want to go back to that. That was cool. Why are you using this as a negative example? That this is inclusive. This is saying, hey, come one, come all. We have gone backwards since then. But she doesn't say it like that. She says it was bad, and it remains bad. When the reality is the opposite. It was cool, and now it's not. There's this article on Polygon, the rare good article on Polygon, that talked about the way when games were first on the market, it was, gender neutral, but because marketers, they looked at, oh, guys are buying these products, let's advertise exclusively to guys, because you want to capitalize on that market instead of wasting money trying to get one that isn't interested, and it just snowballed from there. And that's something worth getting into too. Even though, for some reason, that's something you want to bring up in this video about women being background objects. And she used the BioShock Infinite DLC as an example of women as background objects, even though the second episode you play as Elizabeth. I could talk about how not only that, but just last episode, she talked about how women were being advertised to. She went from the Miss Male character video where she's saying, hey, girls are trying to be drawn into this, but that's sexist because they're saying women are a different demographic than men and they're trying to appeal to them in a different way, and that's sexist. And now she's going, women are not and were never trying to be appealed to. This was always a boys' club. She is contradicting herself between videos. I could go even more into that than I already have. I know I've already gotten distracted and rambled about it, but like the main thing that bugged me about this video was the treatment of sex workers, of prostitutes, of hookers, of gigolos, the complete discounting of hell, that's something you can talk about too. The fact there are no male prostitutes in video games. It's all women. Where are the gigolos? It's all female sex workers. It's all hookers. Where are the gigolos? Unfair representation. I demand equality in my representation of sex workers. Let me go to a male strip club if I wanna. Let me buy someone off the street, man or a woman, penis or vagina. But no, all that's available is vagina. I feel like I'm being left out. I'm being facetious, but you could actually have that as a serious talking point. And she doesn't. She maintains this narrative that, like, women are just not in this game. That not this particular video game, I mean, like, the game of this industry. Of this hedonistic culture that we are slowly sliding into becoming. This idea that women don't like sex, that women don't like showing off what they got, just as much as any man who's got what they got would want to show it off. Like, obviously not all women, but some do, and that's, like, not every individual woman is a representation of all women. Not every individual woman who is objectified in these games is a representation of all women. Not every individual woman in this game who uses her sexuality as a strength, hi Bayonetta, is a representation of all women either. They're just people. They are that particular individual. But no, she's saying like, oh, this woman's a hooker. Patriarchy. I don't get it. I don't get how that applies. The stereotype that women are forced at gunpoint to sell their bodies against their will on the street to sleazy, creepy, violent old men. I thought we'd gotten past that. I thought we'd gotten to the point where, no, hey, women like sex too. They know they have the valuable commodity of sexual gratification and being considered conventionally attractive to provide, and they are enterprising in the way that they want to make money off of it. I mean, Penn and Teller did an episode of Bullshit talking about prostitution. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, sex is a form of discrimination. If you're found conventionally attractive, you can have all the sex you want. If you're not found conventionally attractive, then that's just not there for you with as much ease. So, if you got money, like I said, I'm paraphrasing, but that's the point I'm trying to make, is that women and people in general are / should be allowed to decide whatever they want to do with their body for whatever reason. If they want to have consensual sex with people for money, why is that oppression? I don't see how. It's an outdated stereotype that just doesn't reflect reality anymore. Like I've taken the pains to explain, yes, there are still dangers. But those dangers are only there because it's illegal. If it was decriminalized, the dangers would be gone, by and large. But no, she takes the position that sex workers are brainwashed into self-oppressing Because a woman wanting to have sex is them being oppressed by themselves from their being brainwashed. Because obviously no woman would want to have sex for money. Or in general, really. It skeeves me out. Like, how do people who support Anita Sarkeesian sleep at night? I mean, like, there's agreeing that she is raising this topic and it's an important topic, and then there's agreeing with what she's saying. And I agree that feminism is something that needs to be discussed in terms of video games, but what she's saying is vile and selfish and hateful and judgmental and elitist and prudish towards everyone, not just men. And I really wish someone else was fucking leading the wave in terms of this discussion. Because literally anyone else would be better suited to it. Stop discriminating against prostitutes. It's fucking tough enough out there for them. God damn.